4 months after the gruesome murder of Major Maxwell Mahama in a lynching that shocked the nation and threw into a state of mourning, police investigators are yet to obtain an official autopsy report to fast-track the prosecution of the suspects. 23 persons are currently standing trial for the murder at Dentro Boise in May this year. Frustrated by the delay, police prosecutors had to argue in court before they could secure a court order compelling authorities at the 37 Military Hospital to furnish the police with the autopsy report. Joseph Akable has more in the following report.
State prosecutors handling the case have for the past 1 month waited patiently for the advice from the Attorney General's department. The expectation of the court was that that advice would be ready to enable the committal proceedings to take place as is expected. But that did not happen, as State Prosecutor DSP George Amega informed the court that an essential component that is required to be added to the docket to the Attorney General's department was still not ready, referring to the autopsy report of the deceased soldier. He told the court that they had tried without success to obtain the said report, forcing them to make an application asking for an order directed at the pathology department of the 37 Military Hospital and the doctor who handled the pathology to make the said report available to the police investigators. He said in his experience he has handled cases that for as many as 4 years he has still not been able to obtain the autopsy report, making it necessary to make this application, knowing that once a court order is given, that could hasten the process for that to be done. The request was granted by the court, presided over by Magistrate Ebenezer Kweku Ansa. The order is twofold. First, directed at the pathologist, Dr. Lawrence Edusei, to make this report available to the police prosecutors. Secondly, to the pathology department of the 37 Military Hospital to ensure that this is done. If this is not done on or before the 26th of October, the two individuals, that is the head of the department and the pathologist who handled this, are to appear before the court to explain why the delay. What is interesting is that this has been a case that has been on for at least 3 months, with the death of the soldier being about 4 months since that incident occurred, and the report is still yet to be received, stalling the court process. DSP George Amega insists that indeed it is not a desire of state prosecutors to delay the process at any stage. They understand the concept of a speedy trial, for which reason they have made this application. The expectation is that this report is made available on or before. If it's not done, explanations should be given. Reporting for Joining from the Accra District Court, I am Joseph Akable.
And still in the courts, the Immigration Board's Kwame Techi on Tuesday failed to show up in Accra High Court, stalling a contempt action initiated against him. He has for the past 2 months been engaged in a legal tussle with an Indian businessman, Ashok Kumar Sivaram, whose residence and work permit he withdrew and subsequently deported. The deportation has since been quashed by an Accra High Court, which also gave the Immigration Service 7 days to restore the permit. The businessman, as a result of the immigration head's refusal to obey the court order, initiated the contempt action against Kwame Techi. There is more in the following report.
The 3-month-old legal tussle expected to continue did not, as the immigration boss failed to show up in court. State Attorney Jasmine Ama informed the court Kwame Techi was on tour with the Interior Minister, making it impossible for him to show up. This did not sit well with lead counsel for the businessman, Gary Nimakumafu, who accused the immigration boss of deliberately avoiding the court. He claimed the immigration boss had tried 3 times to escape the service of contempt but was eventually served. State Attorney Ama disagreed with this narration, arguing the immigration boss was willing to appear before the court. Justice Daniel Mensah adjourned hearing of the matter to November 13.
Authorities at the 37 Military Hospital are appealing for urgent supply of consumables for the treatment of victims of the Medina Atomic Junction gas explosion, as their stocks have been depleted in the last few days. Some 26 of the 40 victims who were sent there for treatment, having sustained various degrees of injury, have since been discharged. There are, however, 14 more, with 2 of them said to be in critical condition. Commanding officer of the hospital, Colonel Yeboah Ejepon, made the appeal when officials of a Chinese firm, Sunda International, presented relief items and cash worth 40,000 Ghana cedis for the victim, or the upkeep of the victims.
As you've brought are actually the ones that we need because some of the patients are burnt, sustained some burns, and we need cleaning materials for them. We are very happy that you heard and you've come to help those who are still on the wards. And some of the items would also be given to those who have even been discharged home. We would like to use this opportunity, first of all, to thank your company, Sander and Trifoid, for this kind gesture. And we would like also to use this opportunity to appeal to other corporate institutions that we are still in need of certain consumables. Apart from this, we also need IV freeze and some antibiotics for the patients. And as we are aware, some can be staying here, especially the burns patients. Some might stay here for about 6 months to 1 year or 2 years. So we will still be very happy if corporate bodies will come to our aid.
Pursuing international donation follows appeals made to corporate Ghana by Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia on Sunday morning. The devastating explosion claimed 7 lives, including a camera technician with Net2 Television. Managing Director of Sunda International, Isaac Hu, said the contribution forms part of the company's corporate social responsibility.
We came to 37 Hospital to make this donation, try to support, help the victims' family, and I hope that the whole country will join together to help the families to pass this disaster. And in future, I think the whole country will work together to avoid this disaster happen again.
In a related development, the Net2 TV cameraman Mohammed Yakubu Ashley, who died filming last Saturday's gas explosions at Atomic Junction near Medina, has been buried. He is said to have lost his balance and tumbled from the flyover at Atomic Junction when he was struck by one of the blasts. The late Mohammed Ashley worked with Kansas City Media for several years. Relatives of the late reporter and management of Kansas City Media, owners of Net2 TV and Oman FM, the Presidential Press Corps and other government officials joined the Muslim community at his interment. He was buried according to Muslim traditions by the Chief Imam, Sheikh Osman Nur Shaributu, with Chief of Staff Frema Osepari representing the presidency. We're taking a break here on Joy News Prime, but still ahead in the bulletin, the Environmental Protection Agency says there's no law against the siting of filling stations in residential areas. Do stay tuned. We'll be back with all that and more. The Mansiman Municipal Assembly has closed down 6 fuel and gas stations at Mankasim in the central region for operating illegally. The MC from Mansiman, Kenneth Kelly Asuman, who led the operation, said the stations did not have the necessary permits and that the Assembly will not wait for disaster to strike before taking action. Richard Kojonyaku joins us with more on this. Hello, Richard. Which stations are being closed down and why?
Well, Israel, the Boost fuel station at Mankasim, Shell fuel station at Mankasim, engine filling station at Mankasim, and one that is newly opened, and it's called Beep Energy Station. And the last one is the Top Oil station. They are all stationed at Mankasim, and 2 others. So now they are not even stuck. They led the operation. According to the Infantaman MC Kenneth Kelly Suman, they do not want the disaster that occurred in Accra to happen in the area, and so they are taking the steps to ensure that these things do not occur under his jurisdiction. And so he has taken so some of the stations that were closed down did not have the necessary permit to operate. Others have even started operating without the necessary licenses to operate. Others have also failed to adhere to some safety regulatory practices. And so he said that his outfit will continue to embark on such operations and to ensure that things are done in their proper manner.
Now, Richard, are we seeing the last of this, or are there more to follow?
Well, he says that he is embarking on a campaign to ensure that the right things are done by these fuel and gas filling stations. And so he is not going to, this is not going to be the last. He is going to roam in the entire Infantiman municipality. This happened only in one town, that is the Mankesim area. So under his leadership, he is going to ensure that these stations adhere to the strict safety regulatory practices that are required of them to ensure that they do the right thing and not wait for any disaster to happen before they move in to engage in any talk shop.
All right, thank you very much, Richard Kojunyak. Before you go, though, what are the reactions of residents in Cape Coast to the decisions by the MCU?
Yeah, the reaction has been mixed, because in Cape Coast there are major filling stations that people are calling on the EPA and the Cape Coast Metro Assembly to ensure that they close them down. These are the gold filling station. Others have also been cited in residential areas. In fact, we just heard the EPA saying that there are no laws that prohibit them from citing fuel stations in residential areas. But others have been cited in water courses. So when it rains, all these places get flooded. Others have also blocked some major entrances in Cape Coast. One has been cited very close to Old Cape Coast Sports Stadium. People have been talking about it, but no one seems to be minding them. And so that is why they are calling on the authorities in Cape Coast to ensure that the right things are done. All these stations ought to be closed down, or they ought to be relocated.
All right, thank you very much. Richard Kojunyak reporting from Cape Coast. Fuel and gas stations sited in residential or commercial locations across Ghana have not broken any law. That's the position of the Environmental Protection Agency in its first official statement since the Medina atomic gas tanker explosion that has so far claimed 7 lives and injured more than 130. Even before Cabinet takes a concrete decision on how to introduce fresh reforms in the management of such facilities, the EPA is defending the existing situation where some gas and fuel stations are allowed to operate within residential areas, saying it is not illegal. Here's Executive Director of the EPA, Peter Abum Sarkodie.
A fuel station situated very close to UPS. Is that not it? If you would recall, we are saying that currently there is no law in the country that spells it out clearly that fuel stations and LPG filling stations should not be sited in residential areas. Have you gotten it? So there's no law. So to the ordinary man in the street, all you people are looking for is that perhaps there is a fuel station or LPG station, and the close neighborhood has a lot of maybe residential facilities there, and you think that perhaps that is against a particular law. But here we are telling you that there's no law. So the fact that UPA, the university is there, it doesn't debar maybe an operator to also apply for a permit, first of all, from the former town and country planning. You see, they would have to give the land title, the land permit for him to do his citation, his citing. So the law is not there for us to say that no, this is EPA block and therefore you cannot on the adjacent side put up your station. So there's no law. We cannot stop it.
Well, the Mansko gas station at the heart of the tragedy is set to have started the process of renewing its permits when the incident happened.
Yes, we don't sit in the office. If I give you a typical LPG or fuel service station fire. Maybe I'll have to get one for some of you to verify. You will realize the kind of processes that we go through before a permit is issued. So we do go to the field. And then let me also look at, there was a question on whether they have renewed their permits. I think somebody asked that, yes. In fact, yes, they haven't gotten the permit yet, but they were in the process of renewal, and then this thing happened. So they started the process, but the permit has not been renewed yet.
The EPA chief executive further refuted claims the agency has over the period failed to do its work due to excessive political influence.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me say that EPA believes that it is mandated by an act of parliament. So we are not to be intimidated by any political influence. We will not do that. So that is the assurance I can give to all of you.
In a related development, Strategic Energies Limited, SCL, has dismissed claims the siting of its fuel station close to the UPSA poses a threat to the lives and students and neighbors. Managing Director of SCL, Johnny Blagoji, says his outfit has installed standard equipment which will curtail any explosion should it occur. In an interview with Derek Echo Sams, Blagoji said his outfit has the required documents to operate the fuel station in the area.
Educated them about this issue almost a year ago. When we started the project, there was some agitation by the students, and we engaged them. And finally, around January 25th January this year, there was a stakeholder meeting at EPA where the student body was there. MPA was there, EPA was there. In fact, the student body even had some lawyers who represented them and ourselves. And a presentation was made to everybody of what has been done at UPSA, what safety measures have been put in place, the standard of equipment that have been used there. And in fact, we have used the international standards from our piping to the equipment that we have used there.
Now, you had a meeting with the various stakeholders. Was it the same administration as in the Student Representative Council?
No, I must say, I think there is a change in the SRC membership now. I heard. So the old membership were privy to this meeting we had. I believe maybe there was a communication gap, or there have been a communication gap for that matter. The students or the entire student body are not privy to the discussions we had. In fact, during the discussions, the stakeholder meeting, the student body requested for documents covering what we've done, which we did and gave it to them, you know.
I think in all of this, one thing that stands out is the part about the human face bits, where they expect that because it's within a community where should there be an explosion like we just had, lives may be lost. Don't you think?
Yes, anywhere there's explosion, the consequences are there. I mean, if there's a gas explosion, the consequences will be the fire spreading, and people can be injured, and there can be fatalities. But what we are saying is that we've considered the vicinity or the environment in which we are going to operate, vis-a-vis the schools, hostels, and pedestrians, and everybody that matters. For that matter, we have tried to make the place as safe as possible. In fact, very, very safe. Let me use the word. Very, very safe as possible, yes. If there should be one, the place is devoid of spillage. Two, the place is devoid of ingress of water into the tanks because of the way the installations have been done. 3, the place is devoid of leakages because we've used UPP pipes, the polyethylene pipes that have a lifespan of more than 30 years. We never use any galvanized that will corrode, and for that matter, there will be a leakage. Submersible pumps.
Meanwhile, the Progressive People's Party vehemently disagrees with the EPA's position that siting of fuel and gas stations within residential and light commercial areas do not breach any law. Chairman of the party, Alote Bruhamun, says even though the issue of location is not explicitly stated in the law books, the law provides for a perimeter within which fuel stations should be sited, and that must be implemented to the letter.
It says that the situation of the gas must not be within a certain parameter,
right?
100 meters.
Okay. So you disagree with them when they say that the siting of fuel stations in residential and commercial areas do not breach any law? That's their position.
Well,
the EPA.
As far as I know, it does breach if it is within the 100 meters perimeter.
Right.
If it is within the 100 meters perimeter, it has breached the law. And that's what I know. If I'm wrong, they should educate me on that. I'm not overly convinced because we hear this all the time. Okay. This is the 8th time that we've had a gas explosion in the last 3 years. And all of these things were said. I mean, what's new being said today? Okay. They've all been said about for the last 3 years. Okay. And the 8 occurrences of the gas explosion, they said the same thing. So if there would be some effect to what they are saying, we shouldn't see another gas explosion for the next 20 years.
It should be beyond the words.
Hello again, good evening and welcome to Business. The country would record an average economy almost 9% for next year. That's according to the latest IMF Economic Outlook report launched in Washington, D.C. today. George Wiafi earlier spoke with Darrell Kwao on Business Live with some highlights.
Just like what other international bodies have also said, it has to do basically with the fact that they're expecting oil production to pick up from next year. And that will have a great impact on the economy. So basically, Darrell, it has to do with the fact that oil is going to do very, very well. They're also expecting revenue to pick up. And that is the basis of this projection that we're going to see. There's almost a 9% growth in the economy. And if you do the analysis stretching back to previous years, until 2014, this would be the highest growth that we have reported for this year, Darrell. Well, it's interesting because one thing that, Darrell, you can deduce from all these assessments is that all these agencies appear to be singing the same song. So all of them are saying that, well, it looks like revenue is indeed going to pick up. It looks like oil production is going to expand. And even for this year, they're also looking at about 6% economic growth rate for Ghana. So it means that maybe they are seeing something, doing their own extrapolations and all the rest, and they believe that growth will be bigger than even what government has estimated. But they're also talking about some significant growth as well, looking at almost 6% growth, and that's the end of year target. Don't forget that somewhere around last year, we were in the range of about 3%. And so that is an over 100% jump in the economic growth rate for Ghana. Also interesting because what we're also picking up is that there could be some rebasing and the economy might even be bigger than what we actually thought. And it could be more bigger again than what we have estimated. And what people will be asking is that what could be the implication of this with respect to the public debt, because the issue has come about because of the fact that the economy wasn't that big. So the bigger the economy, it means that the rate of respect to the size of our debt in relation to our economy might go down significantly down.
Meanwhile, ratings agency Standard & Poor's has revised the outlook on Ghana's credit worthiness to positive from stable. The move was influenced by measures that government is currently implementing to strengthen the public finances. The development could impact positively on the country's cost of borrowing and even private sector businesses. Meanwhile, economist Professor Godfred Bokwin tells Joy Business government still needs to do more to to sustain this assessment.
The international community, a rating agency, would set credibility, raising the outlook, which probably indicate that their next major rating will see a significant improvement. I think it's good for Ghana in our bid to generate market confidence. I think what is also important is that they are also beginning to see, consistent with what we have also observed, that the economy is beginning to respond to the various policy initiatives and the overall government strategy. But I think what is also important for all of us to know is that it's early days yet. It's too early to begin to say that we have arrived. The recovery is still slow. There are still threats, downside risk to our recovery. Debt to GDP ratio is still an issue. Debt servicing to revenue ratio is still an issue. But I think what is also good is that, of course, it should build the confidence of government and enable them to continue on the path that they have chosen. Because when you begin to see these early dividends, it also gives you a positive feedback that, of course, you are implementing something that is getting results and all of that. So I think it's quite good. What is important for all of us is to also understand that the growth that the S&P is talking about is not really, it's not the ultimate. It's not growth that we can all be proud of. And I think it's something the government will have to take another look at.
And back home in Ghana, the Ministry of Energy says it will grant some incentives to lure investors to invest in the renewable energy sector. So far, renewable energy contributes only 1% to the national grid. Deputy Minister of Energy Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam at the 3rd Annual Ghana Renewable Fair stated the desire of government to shore up the contribution of renewable energy to 15% of the nation's energy mix.
Electricity currently reaches 85% of the population, with 15% of the rest in darkness. According to the Ministry of Energy, several of these areas will be too expensive to reach, with 1% of renewable energy is fed into the national grid. By 2020, it is expected to reach some 10%. Deputy Minister of Energy Mohammed Amin says the current Renewable Energy Act will not be enough to push for this agenda.
We have identified a number of challenges that have constrained the actual realization of renewable energy power plants. And some of these constraints, which were identified at the time the Renewable Energy Act was passed, must be addressed in order to ensure the full realization of the potential before us. Government is determined to amend the Act to further address some of these outstanding constraints and also to provide opportunity for including competitive tendering procurement of renewable energy as a provision in this.
One of these incentives is the obligatory purchase provision. By obligatory purchase provision, it means that you may not even need a power purchase agreement to be able to sell the power you produce from renewable sources. It is a law. The Renewable Energy Act provides that once you produce, from renewable energy, the off-taker, the distributor of power, ECG in our case, must buy it. Okay, that is one incentive. The other incentive is the import exemption on the materials that are brought in for assembling renewable energy solutions. That is another important. And then we also have the feed-in tariff. The feed-in tariff is the tariff that is set above the normal cost of power from conventional sources.
An MOU signed with the government of Germany will be one of the several government-to-government and private sector support pushing forward the agenda. So far, the German government has set aside 100 million euros for 2017 to support the private sector to invest in renewable energy.
Germany will commit up to 100 million euros in 2017. The bilateral reform partnership aims at a privately driven expansion of renewable energy in Ghana. Germany and Ghana agreed to focus in particular on strengthening competition in power generation and to make the renewable energy sector a shining example in order to reduce cost of generation, to introduce open and competitive bidding, and to get, in the end, the best value for the money invested.
Still on energy, the ministry says it will cancel past power purchase agreements entered into by the ECG while it postpones others to 2025. These statements were made at the 3rd Renewable Energy Fair organized by the Energy Commission.
Now, the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, CIPS, is advocating the engagement of more professionals in public procurement processes. According to the Institute, engaging procurement professionals is key in tackling corruption in state institutions. Sheila Tamaklo was at the opening of the Ghana office of the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply in Laboni, Accra, and has filed this report.
Analyzing the critical role of procurement professionals in government expenditure, Director of the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, Duncan Brooks, said corrupt procurement processes in the public domain can largely be avoided if the procurement process is managed by a professional.
If I meet organisations and I meet the people who are leading up procurement in governments and in private sector, there's not enough good strategic people at that level. So I think the key is trying to get highly qualified people who know what to do to try and lead things forward. And the other thing is, I mentioned in my speech earlier, was fraud and corruption. We know across Africa it's a challenge, but we do see it as being a big challenge here. So people need to know how to identify fraud and then how to eradicate it, and how to put in place proper transparency across all levels. And it's not necessarily at the low level. It tends to be the big items of expenditure that where corruption happens more, because it's a senior level to senior level corruption. Procurement needs to step up and to be much more visible in their decision-making processes and do something about them.
For instance, Ghana, how much it's costing us?
So, I mean, the statistics I've seen that says that they reckon that between 20 and 30% of the spend is lost through corruption. So if you take the GDP of Ghana and then you sort of say how much of that is being spent with suppliers, this estimated 20 to 30% of that is being lost in corruption.
MP for Lale Jokuku constituency, Dr. Okoboy, agrees with the group.
Procurement professionals also can help establish tools to block those routes that politicians and other stakeholders use to corrupt the procurement process. So that's why we are all excited. And today I cited one example of one procurement process that was going to cost wastage of over $4 billion. And that is the BOG contract that we were just about signing with Septon Switch Systems. When a change in government occurred, this government, under the leadership of His Excellency Nando and Dr. Baumia, they set up a team to review and were able to get the same job done for less than $4 million. Now, when you look at the cuts, the reduction in value from $4.6 billion to $4 million, it's huge. And my sister, you have a situation where $4 billion is 10% of Ghana's GDP, one procurement process. So that is why you can have a country being at the same place in terms of development for 10 years, because the country is raising revenue, the country is getting resources, yet it is being drowned by a few corrupt practices.
The newly opened office of CIPS is also a resource center for its students to have access to study material.
And that's all by way of business tonight. Many thanks for joining us. My name is Emmanuel Boaji Riafe. For more business news updates, log on to myenjoyonline.com/business. There's more ahead. Don't go away yet.
Now, police have dropped charges of assault and causing damage brought against 13 members of pro-New Patriotic Party NPP Vigilante Group Delta Force. Instead, the suspects had been slapped with a new charge, rioting. The 13 were arrested after they stormed the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council in protest of the appointment of the Regional Security Coordinator. An intercepted copy of an advice from the Attorney General's office cites lack of evidence as a reason for dropping the initial charges. Love News' Erastus Osario-Donko has a copy of the advice from the Attorney General and joins us with more on that. Hello, Erastus. Now, we know there are two cases, one that involved members of the Delta Force who went to the court premises, and then the case of those who went to the court premises there were those who went to the court premises, and there were those who also went to the Regional Coordinating Council. So which of these cases are we talking about? Just clarify it all for us.
Well, we are talking about the Delta Force Original 13, we call them.
Okay. And what exactly is the advice being given by the Attorney General in their regard?
Well, the advice here states that the original charges were assault and causing damage. And it makes reference to a letter that was written by the police department, CID, requesting for advice. And so it is replying that particular letter. And here it is stating that the police in that letter told the Attorney General's office that they obtained pictures from social media and edited, which revealed that the named Biggie, now at large, was very instrumental in the attack, and efforts were being made to trace him. It also mentions the fact that the police actually were struggling with getting evidence to prove. 7/17, the regional CID scheduled an identification parade to be conducted at the regional police headquarters, prior to which the complainant and his witnesses, Roger Kwashi and Florence Menu, had been served with notices of participation, but on the said day, complainant and his witnesses failed to attend. He is referring to George Ajay, who is the regional security liaison officer at the time. Now, it says that even when complainant was contacted on phone, it's referring to George Ajay at the same time, same day, to remind him he told the police he was not interested in the case and would not come to the police station to assist in any further investigation. So it goes on to conclude that though the little evidence on record shows that offenses of assault, stealing, and unlawful damage has been committed, the difficulty prosecution will, however, encounter will be identifying the perpetrators of these acts. And so it goes on to give remedy to what going forward they could do. So here it states that Section 198 of the Criminal Offences Act 29 of 1960 provides that a person who takes part in a riot commits a misdemeanor. Section 196 of the same act provides the definition of riot does. 196, 5 or more persons together in a public or private place commit the criminal offense of a riot where they commence.
We do apologize for the intermittent breaks there.
CID duplicate case docket is returned for the above stated purpose, and they are.
All right, Erastus, I would want you to tell us what sentences these 13 are likely to face should they be found guilty of this charge of rioting.
Well, in fact, the letter doesn't state what they are likely to be, but what it states that they should change it to rioting and charge them appropriately.
Right, but it's interesting that the man at the this regional security liaison officer who is at the heart of it and supposed to be the complainant is actually not making himself available to give evidence in this case.
Well, that is what the advice from was not interested in the case and he did not show up. Likewise, those at the office who witnessed the incident, one Roger Koshi and another woman.
At that point, clearly the police have very little option but to let the case go. What's been the reaction of residents in the capital, Kumasi?
Well, they are indifferent. There are many people who are indifferent from the start. There are people who thought that this could be a political trial, and so definitely it's not getting anywhere. So people are not so surprised. The news did not make so much the excitement or expectation that people will get worried or angry. We are yet to see that.
All right, thank you very much, Erastus Sasaradonko, bringing us that update on the Attorney General's advice to the police prosecution in the case of the 13 Delta Force members. You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break. Please stay tuned. President Nana Addo Nana Akufo-Addo has fulfilled yet another campaign promise after the official launch of the restoration of the nurses, midwife, trainees allowance at the Sunyani Nursing Training School on Monday. The president revealed that 232 million cedis will be spent this academic year on paying the allowances. Precious Summerverse report.
The trainee allowance, which was cancelled by the NDC government in the 2013-2014 academic year, has been restored to the excitement of the beneficiary students at the Sunyani Nurse and Midwife Training School. The launch, which was well attended by top government officials, including the Bronahafo Regional Minister, Kwekwa Sumachreme, the Health Minister, Kwekwa Jumamenu, also saw traditional rulers within the region and people from all walks of life. Hundreds of nurse and midwife training students could not hide their thrill shortly after the arrival of the president, when some of them received alerts on their phones indicating that the money has hit their account. The president, affirming his party's determination in fulfilling the promise of restoring the allowance ahead of the 2016 campaign period, says 58,000 health trainees in the country will be paid an allowance of 400 cedis starting from September.
Many of your colleagues, as a result of the cancellation, were demotivated and demoralized. The New Patriotic Party and I heard your cry and assured you of the restoration of these allowances if we won the election. By the grace of God and by the generosity and trust of the Ghanaian people, I am here today as President of the Republic, ready to fulfill the pledge we made to you.
The president, who also attributed the restoration of the nurses' allowance to the prudent management of the economy, added that leadership is about choices, and he has chosen to invest in the education of the people of Ghana.
I wish to assure them that with the proper management of our public finances, the nation's budget can accommodate such an amount. The implementation of the free senior high school policy on 12 September 2017 should be an indicator of the fact that leadership is about choices. I have chosen to invest in the education and in the future of our young men and women.
The president of Conference of Heads of Health Training Institutions, Josephine Ansuji-Abo, was grateful to the president for the fulfillment of his promise. She addressed the students to show appreciation to the president by using the allowance to achieve high academic standards.
I know that your joy has no bounds with the restoration of the trainee allowance. I know you are more than grateful to His Excellency the President and the government of Ghana. But I believe that the best way you can express your gratitude is to make a difference by setting high academic and moral objectives for yourselves and work hard to ensure that you pass all your examinations at the first sitting and come out as well-trained, qualified, and committed healthcare personnel that Ghana can be proud of.
Some of the students who spoke to Joy News said the restoration of the allowance came at the right time, as it will ease the pressure on the shoulders of their parents.
And we want to thank the president for giving us our allowances back. We want to say that we will study hard and we will use the money so that it will help our education.
I appreciate what the president has done for this school and the nursing and midwifery. We appreciate what he has done. We promise that we will be of good behavior and use the money in paying of our fees and helping our education and come out as well-trained nurses and midwives.
Here in Accra, teachers at the Accra Technical University on Tuesday declared an indefinite strike to protest the lack of basic teaching facilities. It follows the expiration of a 2-week ultimatum to the school's management to address the challenge, which the teachers say has been ignored. Executives of the local chapter of the Technical University Teachers Association of Ghana say that failure of the school to provide the facilities is frustrating the teachers' efforts. Nancy Emifadra-Dozie has more.
The Technical University Teachers Association of Ghana, the local chapter of the Accra Technical University, has with immediate effect withdrawn all teaching and related services as the same management has failed to, for some 2 to 3 weeks now, heed to its call to fix teaching and learning facilities here at the Accra Technical University. Students far outnumber the furniture available in the lecture halls, leading to serious congestion. A class which should ideally sit 100 students now has over 200.
Good afternoon to you all. Yeah, you can see you've waited for me for a while.
With no public address systems in the classrooms, lecturers have to shout on top of their voices because of the large number of students. The science laboratories are also ill-equipped and lack basic materials to facilitate teaching and learning. Chemistry lecturer Bright Azuma says it makes his work extremely difficult.
This has been a recurrent problem. We have complained severally. Before school went on vacation, we complained that the lab is not in a state for teaching. They gave us 1 week, that they'll use that 1 week to restore everything that is in the bad state. And we are in the 4th week. And as you can see clearly, nothing has been done. We cannot bring students here. Okay, we are endangering them, and that is not acceptable.
Local TUTAC chairman Jones Ajayi Ntiamwa says his members will stay out of the classrooms till their demands are met.
There are not enough washrooms for students to use, so it's like we are living in a state of despair. And if nothing is done, we the teachers shall not return to the classroom until these basic things are done. We are not asking for new lectures to be built because that takes time, we all know. But we want these basic amenities to be in place. I don't think it will be prudent for a student to be in a class where there are no chairs. It will surprise you that some of our students come to class and stand to listen to lectures. Some of them sit outside. We think that this is highly unacceptable, and we shall not tolerate it anymore.
However, management says everything is set to buy and fix all the materials that is needed for learning and teaching.
To procure things, we know there are procedures that we go through. So management has noted their issues, has put in place plans, and started acquiring the logistics to satisfy some of these needs.
The minority NDC in Parliament is demanding, among others, that government puts measures in place to ensure that no Ghanaian accused of being an Islamic State fighter is allowed to return to Ghana without strict security clearance and surveillance. This follows what the minority says is a report of a special inquiry commissioned by the Attorney General of Libya after the recent NATO-backed liberation of Sirte from the so-called Islamic State. The minority, at a news conference addressed by the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, said some of the findings of the inquiry are worrying. He noted that the report revealed that Ghanaian migrants feature prominently as members of the so-called Islamic State, while kidnappings of expatriates were mostly carried out by Islamic State foreign fighters from Ghana, Turkey and Tunisia. Here's Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa reading out the demands of the minority.
Government must publicly react to this inquiry by the Libyan Attorney General's office. Due to its grave ramifications, the report is accurate. It is possible that other nationals are holding themselves as Ghanaians, maybe using Ghanaian passports. So we are not making any judgments at this press conference, but we want government to take action to look into this matter to find out if indeed the report by the Libyan Attorney General's office is accurate, and if indeed all the people who have been captured claiming to be Ghanaians are indeed Ghanaians. 4, Ghana's national security apparatus must exchange intelligence with their Libyan counterparts on how these Ghanaians, if indeed they are Ghanaians, are being recruited and radicalized with a view to eliminating all such threats and conduits. 5, government must put measures in place to ensure that none of these alleged Ghanaian Islamic State fighters are allowed to return to Ghana without strict security clearance and surveillance.
Addressing the media shortly after the Minority News Conference, Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Frank Anodompre, said government is aware of the matter but has not seen the report, hence investigations are being conducted to ascertain its veracity. Mr. Dompre was, however, not pleased the minority took the issue to the media rather than discussing it at the committee level.
The Foreign Affairs Ministry, and for that matter, the government, this is not a matter that is new. The government is fully aware of this. We have done enough checks at the ministry, and the ministry is already aware. What is important is that the ministry is conducting an investigation into the matter. And so for anybody to allege that, oh, the ministry is already aware and knows about it and is not doing anything about it, it's neither here nor there. It is also important for us to state, amongst other things, that the said report, we haven't seen that said report. I don't know if you have seen the said report. It is also been alleged that some Ghanaians have been mentioned. That has not been proven. The authenticity of these Ghanaians cannot be proven or has not been proven at this stage. So all we need to do, and if you recall, in 2015, in August 2015, the report that a KNUST student has joined an ISIS group, then we were in the minority. I'm sure many of you recall, we were in the minority. We behaved responsibly. We never rushed to the media to throw this thing out there to cause unnecessary panic.
A mental health patient suffering from schizophrenia, Francis Ankaku, has urged persons with the illness not to give up, but rather have the hope that they will be better one day. Francis Ankaku, who hails from Bo in the lower district of the Upper West region, but resident in Wa, has been battling with the disease for about 17 years. Speaking in an exclusive interview with Joy News' Upper West region correspondent Rafiq Salam on the occasion of World Mental Health Day, he urged his colleagues to religiously stick to the medication given them, as that is the only way they can be cured.
He was born and named as Francis Ankaku, but changes swiftly according to whoever becomes the Secretary General of the United Nations. A decade ago, he rechristened himself as Ban Ki-moon until last year, when he made swift change to Antonio Guterres.
Ki-moon, Antonio Guterres. The name itself is giving me an impression to my life. So I also like to be called as Ban Ki-moon in Wa. Ban Ki-moon in Wa. So I'm a total Ban Ki-moon in Wa to be champion, as I say.
But now, the position has changed. It's now Antonio Guterres.
So my name also go to Guterres at the same time. So my name is Antonio Guterres.
17 years ago, Francis Ankaku was working with Assad Original Pay All as a lotto agent. He got to the office one morning and suddenly took ill. He was later diagnosed to be suffering from schizophrenia.
So one time ago, I said that my body was not feeling well. So I decided to walk out from the office. That's how the whole thing started with me when I was still working on Assad Original Pay All.
How long was it?
It took me about 5 years before I recovered.
So when it happened, were you taken somewhere? Were you taken to the hospital?
Yes, I was taken to the hospital. Then they treated me small. Then I went back home. Then from home, one time it came again. So I left the home, my hometown, and I started to be in Wa here.
At Wa, he has no house to sleep in and has to construct a kiosk and use as a residence and also for his lotto business. Unfortunately for him, the kiosk got burnt one afternoon, thus rendering him not only homeless, but lost some personal effects as well. He has no other option than to lie in the open under the vagaries of the harsh rainy weather condition, using this veranda owned by the One Maternal and Child Health Clinic.
The mosquito has a problem. When it's raining, I'm not comfortable. So the rainy season, I'm not welcome. But when it comes to dry season, that one day I'm comfortable. But when the rainy season there, the rain will be raining, but I have to be just hang around. I can't have peace. I'm appealing to everyone who are concerned about me that can be able to help me to put out a container here, small container, whereby I can be able to protect all these things, small. But a little bit of automatic, one day, maybe I may have a room to hire myself.
47-year-old Francis Ankaku said he used to be wealthy and even owned 5 vehicles. He told me how he used to enjoy life with friends, but now has been stigmatized and dumped.
I said, Alain, you need to have several girlfriends. Well, the girlfriend I can't tell because after that, because there's no money, the girl all run away. So, but well, see, if I got money back, they'll come back. I'm sure. So I'm sure if I got my money, they'll all come back.
Yes. He has hope that he will be well again soon and life will be normal.
So we should tell them that things are in order now. Yeah, we should tell them that things are in order now. They will come and see me. I'm very brief and nothing has worried me again. So let's pray to God.
His only message to persons who are facing similar challenges on the occasion of World Mental Health Day is for them not to give up.
Whosoever affected shouldn't give up. He should try to be very comfortable and try to give the material they are giving him. He should abide to it small. The fellow will realize that things will be okay for him. They shouldn't give up. When they shouldn't think that where they are, that is all about them. No. They should be able to put out things that one day thing will change from them.
Reporting for J News, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
Etoile Intensive Care Unit of the Wenchi Methodist Hospital in the Brahafo region is grappling with a huge number of preterm babies that are delivered or referred there due to inadequate incubators. The worrying situation, according to the medical officer at the unit, Dr. Solomon Chimogo, causes congestion resulting in the spread of infections among babies. Joining us, Nestor Kafuya Juma has been to the hospital to investigate how the lack of incubators is threatening attainment of the Sustainable Development Goal on preventable deaths of newborns.
The World Health Organization describes preterms as babies born before their due date or not fully matured at birth. Whilst babies would usually be delivered after 40 weeks, such babies would be born before the 37th week. 1 in 10 or 15 million babies are born preterm worldwide each year, with 60% of them coming from sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. The Wenchi Methodist Hospital delivers many of these preterm babies. Several others are also referred from the Tai and Banda districts in the Brong-Ahafo region, and sometimes as far as Bole Bamboy in the northern region for further intensive care with incubators. Dr. Solomon Chimogo says the major risk factors of preterm deliveries in their catchment areas include maternal infections such as malaria and urinary tract infection, anemia in pregnancy, as well as delay in reporting to hospital.
It is that of a challenge because we are having an increasing number of babies that come to us, both within and then from those that are referred from nearby communities, even as far as northern region, other towns like Bole, Bamboy, Dinolongro, they all come here. So we have a number of babies, so many of them that we need to manage appropriately. For the figures, from January last year to September last year, we had a total of 81 preterm babies. And then for the same period this year, from January this year to September, we have a total of 72 preterm babies. And then looking at the situation, we have only one functioning incubator, and we need to manage these preterm babies, those who need to be kept warm, so meaning that there's congestion and all sort of challenges. Last year, the number of preterm babies that died, they were 14 out of the 81 that came, which is quite a high number. And because of congestion and then other constraints in terms of logistics, we referred 11 to other nearby facilities. And for this year, out of the 72 preterm babies that we had so far, 4 of them died, and then we referred 16. 16 were referred out to Techima, mostly to Techima and then Sunyani Regional Hospital.
The neonatal intensive care unit currently has only one incubator. Dr. Shemogo says they would ideally require between 4 to 10 of the machines.
One is not enough for when you have about 81 preterm babies for 9 months. One isn't enough, so we need incubators. We need about 4, if we can get 5 or 6. Because the minute we have them, then the better the care for the baby. So far, we have only one radiant warmer. If we get extra 2 or 3, it will be fine for us, because the preterm babies need to be kept warm.
Baby Inshira, who is a year old, and baby Melvina, also 5 months old, have both survived being born preterm. For these two mothers, their babies would forever be treasured because of the trouble they have gone through giving birth to them.
An incubator saved my baby, so we appeal for more incubators for the hospital. My husband abandoned us because of the baby's condition. I never thought my child would survive.
The story at the Sunyani Regional Hospital, which is a major referral center in the Brong-Ahafo region, is no different. Head of Pediatric Department, Dr. Bright Esiama, talks about how babies are naturally born with jaundice, a defect that causes yellowing of the skin and eyes in newborn babies. This defect, he says, needs infant phototherapy to get corrected, but the equipment being used is not certified.
I can't guarantee the effectiveness of the radiance of the light being thrown onto the baby. We need incubators in the unit. Currently have 3 incubators, which 2 are functional now. So we need more incubators.
The lack of incubators and other medical equipments for the development of neonatal babies is clearly threatening the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goal 3. The provision of such critical equipment will offer life-saving interventions for mothers like Jennifer Bonfair, who for the second successive birth has had a preterm.
For Joy News, Nesta Kafui Ajoma report.